Is a player averaging a near 30-point triple-double worthy of an MVP? What about a player having one of the greatest defensive seasons of all time? Or how about a player averaging 34 points who put up 40 a game for an entire month? Is he worthy of the award? Or what about a player who is having the most efficient 30-piece in the history of the NBA on his way to 65 wins? Now, the answer is pretty simple. All of these seasons are worthy of an MVP. But what if all of these seasons are happening at the same time?
All right. I'm gonna stop it right there. I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you ask me, Solo, if you ask me who you think the MVP is, I'd tell you it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the number 1 seed, super efficient, very consistent, right? But if you ask me statistically who's the MVP, it's Jokic. It's averaging a 30-point triple-double. Yes, we've seen that happen before, but this is a really efficient 30-point triple-double. Damn near basically a 30-point triple-double. But if you ask me based on what your team needs from you night to night, without a doubt, what your team needs from you night to night, it's Luka. Luka is the MVP, just based off on that. I know you can have the discussions down in the comments below, but Luka is the MVP. He is the MVP. Hands down, he is the MVP. Just saying.
4 players, 4 legitimate cases being made, and only 1 award. Who should be the NBA's most valuable player this season? Well, that depends on who you ask and what they value.
The numbers. Okay.
Winning the MVP usually means putting up numbers that jump off the stat sheet. It's not the only thing that matters, but big eye-popping box scores have almost become a prerequisite for the MVP award.
Yes.
And right now there's 2 players who don't just stand out this season, they stand out amongst every season. If we just look at raw box score numbers, Jokic and Luka are gapping the entire league this season. Their numbers have gotten so absurd that they make Shai's 31, 4, and 7.
Now I know dang well. So he's including Luka's, 33.7 points per game, right? But then when you scroll down, he also highlights his 4 turnovers per game. Now I'm not saying that that's really showing much. But if this is like one of the cases to say that they're like these two are gapping the league in this rate, I think it's a little crazy. Because 4 turnovers a game is not good. That's not good. But he's a superstar. He's going to have high usage, which means high usage is going to lead to a lot of turnovers. But here's the issue. You got Shai over here. It's only 2.2 turnovers, 6.5 assists. But the difference is that Shai's not necessarily asked to be, like, he is the playmaker on the team, but his playmaking is a little different than Luka's and Jokic's. Jokic's averaging 10.8 assists and averaging 3.8 turnovers. It doesn't matter. It's still a historic thing because this is just as impressive because he's averaging damn near a 30-point triple-double basically. I mean, Victor, it's literally because of the defense. I'm sorry. It's literally because of the defense. Outside of that, we've seen Anthony Davis average 24, 11, and 3. In 2 blocks a game. Like, it's Wemby's defensive impact that makes him a candidate for the MVP. Now, will he win MVP? No. He's not going to win MVP. His numbers do not stack up to the other 2 guys, the other 3 guys, in order for him to have the case to be MVP. I think the MVP race is going to finish with Shai number 1, Jokic number 2, Luka number 3, Victor number 4. Now, Victor can change that in the near future. He's going to win DPOY this year. But Victor can change that in the near future. He will win MVPs. He will win MVPs. Luka, he might not win MVP. Luka might never win MVP. I'm going to say this right now. Luka might not ever win MVP. Why? The league just hates him. He might not ever win MVP. Let me stop talking. Let me continue back to the video.
Look kind of normal. Add up their per-game points, rebounds, and assists, and Jokic and Luka are having 2 of the top 5 most productive seasons in modern NBA history. Jokic joining the 50 Club, an exclusive group that was previously only occupied by 2017 MVP Russell Westbrook, 2025 Jokic, and 2024 Luka. But if sheer numbers alone guaranteed a player an MVP, then Jokic would have won the award in 2025.
Yes.
And Luka would have won it in 2024.
Yes.
So would James Harden in 2019, Luka again in 2023, and LeBron in 2018. As box score numbers continue to climb across the NBA, so does the frequency of these historically significant seasons. In fact, 17 of the last 20 most productive seasons in modern NBA history have all came in just the last 8 years. Seasons like this, that were once not only warrant of an MVP, but were historic milestones, are now becoming an annual occasion for players like Jokic, Luka, and
Luka's about to average Luka's basically averaging 34. He's averaging basically 34, 8, and 8. Any other year, like I'm gonna tell you this right now, any other year in the 2000s, Luka would win MVP. Luka would win MVP in the early 2010s with those numbers. Luka would win MVP the same year James Harden won MVP. Or Giannis. You also have to think about is that the MVP award it's a narrative based award now. Like, it doesn't go to the guy who's either the best statistical player that year or has the number 1 seed or has the top seed. It literally is based off narrative. What you had to do in that season that proves that you are the most valuable player. And that's why that's why the MVP award can be very controversial for a lot of people.
And the more often we see these shockingly large numbers, the more the shock wears off. It wasn't long ago when averaging a triple-double all but guaranteed Russell Westbrook an MVP as a 6 seed. But in today's NBA, averaging a near 30-point triple-double might not even land you in the top 3 spots for the MVP.
Yeah.
Unlike other superstars around the league who fill the stat sheet with historic volume, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has maintained his spot as the MVP favorite with a season of record-breaking efficiency and consistency, all while spearheading the best team in the league. According to ESPN's net points stat, Shai has only had 5 bad games all season.
Really?
In fact, there has only been one season in the history of the league where a guard was more efficient than Shai at scoring the ball while averaging at least 30 a game. And it was by the greatest shooter of all time, having the greatest season of his career. But to say Shai has simply been efficient this season would be an understatement. So far this season, Shai is scoring 1.6 points every time he shoots the ball. That is the most points per shot by any volume scoring guard.
I think we have to talk about James fucking Harden being up here more than any person. I don't care what anyone says. James Harden's run in Houston will go down in the history books. That is the best scoring of basketball we have ever seen in our lives. No matter what. Shai may have the most maybe the most efficient in terms of it, which means the consistency is always going to be there. But that is the most efficient of most. But that is the best scorer of the past decade that we've ever seen.
History of the NBA. 2026 Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't having one of the most efficient seasons by a guard. He is having the most efficient season of all time. Now, when stacked up against these 3, Victor Wembanyama's numbers pale in comparison. A lot of his value coming on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't think you'll find any never minds on the stat sheet. But Victor has been on a minutes restriction all year. If we standardize these numbers on a per 75 basis, then you can really see just how much
I guess, bro, but like, you got to think about it. In a lot of these games, he's scoring like. In a lot of these games, Victor is scoring like 19, 20, 19, 20 points, like 22 points, which is not bad. Those aren't bad numbers. But for the MVP, you have to have breakout performances. You have to have crazy performances. Yes, he's had 40 points 2 times this year, and they were great. And they were great 40-point games. They were great 40-point games. He had a 40-point game to start the season. You know what I mean? But I think the other 3 guys have more. They have more like higher output games that really put them that really put them in the MVP conversation. Not that Victor can't be in the MVP conversation because of his, statistics. It's just you have to have a game that really solidifies your MVP case. I don't necessarily think like his defense is what's impacting his MVP case. Because defensively, he is probably the greatest defensive prospect we've ever seen in our lives. Without a doubt.
Impacting the game every time he's on the court, with box score numbers that match these other candidates even as a player who doesn't favor offense. However, earning the title as the most valuable player in basketball requires value that goes far beyond the box score. But even looking past the raw numbers doesn't make this decision any easier.
Impact. See, this is an interesting one.
Who is the most valuable player this season? That depends on what you value. In terms of estimated plus minus, it is Shai, who not only has a lead on the rest of the league, he has the 3rd highest single season EPM of any player this century, only trailing 2019 MVP James Harden and 2016 MVP Steph Curry. If we look at crafted plus minus, it's Nikola Jokic who reigns as the best player in the league this season, followed by Wemby and Shai. And if we look at daily plus minus, it is Jokic once again who tops the league with a sizable lead on everyone else. If these all-in-one advanced metrics told us everything, Nikola Jokic would be walking away this season with his 4th MVP.
Yes.
Fortunately for the rest of the field, the value a player provides for his team cannot be boiled down to one simple number.
No.
According to preseason odds, here are the projected number of wins each team was expected to finish with this season. Now, these projections can be off for a number of reasons. Teams dealing with injuries, unexpected leaps from young players, and of course the individual impact of an MVP level player. Coming into the season, the Denver Nuggets were projected to win 54 games. Right now, they are on pace for about 52. The Thunder were projected to finish with about 63 wins, a total they're on pace to surpass by 2 wins. The Lakers were projected to win 47 games, and they're currently on pace for 53. But it is the Spurs who have completely blown away expectations this season. Preseason odds had them winning 45 games this year. They are currently on pace for 62 wins, exceeding projections by 17 wins. If you're looking for who provides the most value, it might be the guy who's transformed the Spurs from playoff hopefuls into title contenders. But looking at the MVP from this angle assigns individual value to team success. And as we all know, despite the MVP being an individual award, more often than not, the perception of a player's value is heavily influenced by the success of their team.
Yes,
After all, if you are truly the most valuable player in basketball, you should be elevating your team to title contention. But rather than looking at team success, let's look at the individual impact these players have on their team. Dunks and Threes has a metric called estimated wins that takes the quality of play from any given player plus the minutes they've played throughout the season to get the estimated number of wins they've contributed to their team's total. Our 4 MVP candidates being the top 4 players in the league this season in estimated wins with 13.8, 14.6, 16, and 18. Nikola Jokic is solely responsible for a third of the Nuggets' wins, but it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who has contributed the most wins to his team this season. But arguably the most accurate way to assess a player's value is to measure how well their team performs when they're on the court versus when they're off the court. how much does a player's presence directly impact their team? Here are the top 30 players in the league this season and their team's net rating when they're off the court. From the Celtics, who are firing on all cylinders even without Jaylen Brown on the court this season, to the Jazz, who are on the verge of relegation without Lauri Markkanen on the court. And now here is the effect these stars have on their team when they're on the court. With the 4 most impactful players in the league this season being Kawhi, Jokic, Giannis, and Wemby, with the highest net on-off in the entire league of plus 17. This means the Spurs are 17 points better per 100 possessions with Wemby on the court. But this stat also reveals another key factor in the MVP race. We often judge a player's impact on how well their team is playing. This has been a point of contention with the MVP award for years. MVPs go to players on good teams with top seeds, and rightfully so. But what if a player has MVP level value, but they're on a bad team? With Bam Adebayo on the court, the Heat have a plus 7.8 net rating, one of the highest in the entire NBA. On-court impact, that is the difference between the Heat being one of the worst teams in the league and merely the 10th seed. Same goes for Giannis and Kawhi. MVP caliber seasons stifled by injuries and teams that are absolutely lost without them. Purely looking at a team's results, like wins or seeding, ignores how great some of these players have to play just to keep their team competitive. With that being said, the MVP award has always valued turning good teams into great teams over turning bad teams into average teams. And with that being the case, here are our 4 MVP frontrunners and the impact they are having on their teams. If you're looking for a player who impacts the game more than anyone else while pushing their team into great territory, then that player is clearly Victor Wembanyama, who is head and shoulders above the rest of
this right here also says that Austin Reeves impacts the Lakers more than Luka. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just think this stat metric, this metric right here doesn't really determine, I don't think this really determines much. Because if that's it, because like that's the case, you have to factor in games too, because like Joel Embiid impacts the game more for the Sixers than Devin Booker impacts the game for the Suns, although Devin Booker's played more games, which really determines that really determines the ratings more than anything, because like LaMelo's here has played about 70 plus games. Him being up here makes sense because he's been in majority of their games. Luka has been in majority of the Lakers games. He's gonna be right here. Austin Reeves played 51 games this year. Not saying that it doesn't include him in there, but there's still a large portion of the games that he does not play. So how does he impact the game more than Luka did for the Lakers? And like Giannis has barely played this year. Other than that, I'm looking at this and other than that, like everything else, I guess everything else really does make sense. Realistically, everything else does make sense. You know what I mean? Like the Joel Embiid thing, I don't know, because he's only played like 43 games. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really add up, but okay.
The league in terms of the impact his presence has on his team. Now, it's important to note that the on-off metric doesn't measure how well an individual player is playing, but rather how well a team is playing while that individual is on the court. So what if we look at this the other way around? What if we directly measure a player's individual impact and how that affects their team's success? This is ESPN Analytics net point stat, and it divides credit and blame to each player on the court for every play of the game to measure the impact of each individual player. The higher the total net points, the more that player has contributed to their team's wins throughout the course of a season. In fact, the metric is so indicative of a player's value that ESPN literally calls it their MVP stat. For example, last year's 2 MVP finalists, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic, finished the 2025 season within 9 net points of each other. The next closest player was Tyrese Halliburton, with about half as many. If you want to know why last year's MVP race was so historic and so close, well, you're looking at it. But this year, the results of an entire season of basketball have turned
was
out
close.
much different.
But I think
There's
it's
no
close this
race
year,
in
though.
this MVP stat. There's no back and forth at the top of the leaderboard. There's no battle for the #1 spot.
Really?
It's just one guy, way ahead
Holy
of everyone else. Who is truly the most valuable player in the NBA?
Ah, my God. But here's what I'm saying. Like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is the best player in the NBA. His team is really good. His team is, without him, his team is a really good team. With him, his team is a great team. But the MVP should be based off on who is the most valuable player to that team. That team, what is that team like without this player? And when you think about it, the Thunder are still a good team without SGA. They're not going to win a championship. They can potentially get out of the first round, but they're not going to win a championship. That's the difference between them. Nikola Jokic. Without Nikola Jokic, they still have Jamal Murray. Without Nikola Jokic, they are still a playoff team, but they're not getting out of the first round. They're either a low playoff team or to play in team. Not getting out of the first round though. The Lakers without Luka and just AR and LeBron, they're still they're a playoff team. Not getting out of the first round, I don't think, but they are a playoff team. Victor, without Victor, the Spurs are play. They're like the lowest of the play in. Without Victor, the Spurs are the lowest of the play in. But that doesn't mean that makes him the MVP. I think realistically, the MVP should go to the guy that just. It's a tough conversation because all these guys mean a lot to their team. All these guys are super impactful for their team. At the end of the day, it's gonna go to Shai. It's gonna go to Shai, and I don't have a problem with that. But I think there needs to be it's just so narrative driven, and I feel like the narrative just drives whether or not you're the MVP or not, and not just based off on what you mean to your team.
Well, that all depends on who you're asking and what they value.
Wonder what the last bit is. Was it defense? Making
With just a
mistakes.
couple weeks left in the season, the MVP race has become so close that there is no clear consensus on who the actual most valuable player in the league is. One source will say it's Luka, another will say it's Wemby, and another will tell you it's Shai. According to Basketball Reference's MVP tracker, it is Nikola Jokic who has a firm grasp on the top spot with a 60% chance of winning the MVP. Ask the fans who they think should be the MVP, and you'll get a completely different answer. A couple weeks ago, NBA Central on Twitter asked fans, who is the NBA's most valuable player? The options being Shai, Luka, Wemby, or Jaylen Brown. Within days, nearly 76,000 fans casted their votes, and running away with over 62% of all the votes as the clear winner was Luka Doncic. The result of a late season surge by Luka.
Hey, I mean, to be fair, the nigga did average 40 for a whole month. He averaged 40 for a whole month. Honestly, when it comes to Luka, I know people talk about the defense a lot. It has gotten better, but I know people talk about the defense a lot. At the end of the day, I think Dirk won MVP. He wasn't that good on defense. Steve Nash won MVP twice. He wasn't that good on defense. I think at the end of the day, Luka's case for MVP is surely based off of the fact that his scoring is so much better than everybody else's. His scoring output is just better than everybody else's. You cannot score better than him. You cannot score better than him. Shai may be more efficient, but you cannot score better than him. Luka is just that's the best. That is the best offensive player in the NBA. I think, in my opinion. And I think that's who it really comes down to.
Averaging nearly 40 points a game for an entire month, and efforts that slingshotted him up to second place on the MVP ladder. Unfortunately, it's not the fans who get to vote for this award.
No.
It's the media.
Yes.
And for them, there has been one clear-cut leader throughout the entire season.
Shay.
Recently, the NBA did its annual MVP straw poll, a survey asking a panel of 100 media members who they think this season's MVP is. The results? Finishing in 5th was Luka Doncic, who received 0 first-place votes. In 4th was Victor Wembanyama. In 3rd was Cade Cunningham. In 2nd was Nikola Jokic. And with a resounding 78 of the 100 first-place votes was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, this poll was conducted back on February 20th, 2 full months before the end of the season, and a lot can and has changed over that time. But in 2025, the same media straw poll was conducted around the same time, and they accurately picked the MVP last season. They also accurately picked the MVP in 2024, and in 2023, and in 2022, and in every single season since the introduction of this mid-season MVP poll in 2016. Over the course of the entire season, 9 different players have slid in and out of the MVP leaderboard, from Luka and Cade to Brunson and Jaylen Brown. But the first half of the season was all Nikola Jokic, dominating the #1 spot for 10 consecutive weeks. It wasn't until an injury sidelined him for a month when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander snagged the top spot and held on to it in what some people described as a runaway victory. At least it was, up until last week, when for the first time in his young career, Victor Wembanyama grabbed the top spot as the MVP frontrunner. The biggest catalyst in Victor's climb to the #1 spot, not necessarily being his play on the court, which has been strong and consistent throughout the entire season. It's what he said off the court.
3 arguments. My first one would be that defense is 50% of the game and that it is undervalued. So far in the MVP race, I believe I'm the most impactful player defensively in the league. Second argument would be we almost swept OKC in the season and we dominated them.
Okay, here's my thing to this. Yes, everyone knows that defense is 50% of the game. That's the other half. He does play both. He does play both. He is better. He is a better defensive player than he is an offensive player. But he does play both. He does average on 24 a game. Almost 25 if you want to round up. But we're not doing all that crazy stuff. Is defense undervalued in the MVP race? Yes. Is defense also overvalued in the MVP race? Yes. I think defense is also overvalued in the MVP race. But I think it is, at the same time, not valued enough. Him making his case for the MVP, I didn't have a problem with it. Because I feel like it's narrative driven. We need to see someone else win it. We've seen Jokic. We've seen Shai. And there's nothing against it. Shai just won his first MVP last year. And there's nothing against that. But I feel like the media always goes with the easiest answer on who to give MVP. The one year they gave Joel Embiid the MVP, I think that was the hardest thing for them to do. Because they had to be like, okay, we can't give it to Jokic. We have to give it to someone else. And I feel like the MVP race, these media members just get voter fatigue. They get voter fatigue. They don't vote for the guy who should really be the MVP. Like, if that were the case, Jordan would have had 10 MVPs. LeBron would have had 10 MVPs. Like, Kobe would have 3 MVPs. Shaq would have 5 MVPs. James Harden would have 2 MVPs. Giannis would have, well, same amount of MVPs, just in different years. Nikola Jokic would have freaking 5 MVP awards by now. Like, you know?
My third argument would be that offense impact is not just sports.
Immediately after this interview, Wemby's odds to win MVP shot up from plus 1,900 to plus 225, pushing Luka into the 3rd spot and turning this late season battle, at least on paper, into a 2-man race. If the MVP strictly went to the best player on the best team, then for the same reason he won it last season, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would be crowned as the league's most valuable player. If the award went to the player who has the largest impact on his team, then Victor Wembanyama would become the youngest MVP in the history of the league. If the award was for the most dominant player in the league, Nikola Jokic would be a 4-time MVP by the end of the season. And if the fans had a say in it, Luka Doncic would be walking away as the league's most valuable player.
Saying?
With 2 weeks left in the season, the MVP race has grown closer than it's ever been. And with 4
Notice how he mentioned if the fans had a case in it for Luka, Luka would be MVP. That shows you how much the media hates Luka. The media cannot stand Luka to the point where the only case you would have in winning MVP would be due to the fans. And that's crazy to me.
players who all have a legitimate case for the award, only one can earn the title as the NBA's most valuable player.
Oh man, guys, that is such a conversation. You know what I mean? It's such a good table talk conversation to have. Anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below what you think about it. What you think about this take. I know I don't have a lot of NBA fans, in here, but I wanted to, change things up a little bit. But as always, this is Zola, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.